Okay, I think we're live. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine. I'm the host of Flourish in the Foreign podcast. Hello. And I'm doing a live right now because I ask for you guys to send me questions if you have any questions or some feedback. And I've gotten some questions and I've been emailing people back. But then I realized that this would be better for everyone. If everyone could hear the response, maybe it could be beneficial. So that's what I'm going to do here today. This scripted live. So bear with me because I'm not usually on lives. I'm not really on this side of the whole equation. So I don't know. I'm just going to talk to myself and hopefully you find it useful. So this question was sent in by Candace. Candace, if you're following, and one, thank you for following, and thank you so much for listening to the podcast. You shared some really nice words. Appreciate that. So I'm going to be answering your question here, but also I will email you in case you're not following the podcast on Instagram. All right. So Candace wrote, love the podcast. Yay. And she says, have you ever come across someone who moved abroad without a job first? And she says, I'm guessing with the intent to live off savings in a cheap country, but obviously ended up working somewhere if they stayed. So, have I come across someone who has moved abroad without a job first? Yes. Yes, I have. And I've documented so far 2 on the podcast and actually several more to come. So the ones that I have documented on the podcast are first, episode 2, Deanna, when she moved to Hong Kong with her husband and her child, she did not have a job and she had to look for employment or they would have to go home. So there's that. The second one would be actually episode 4 with Adelia. Now, Adelia had moved to Honduras to work. But then she moved to Mexico and she didn't really have a job. She ended up working and having business English classes, I think through her university when she was taking Spanish. But she wasn't really working that much. And she was, I think, living mostly on savings and things like that. But then she ended up moving to Kuwait and working and moving to China where she is right now working. So I do have other examples of women who are coming up, but I don't want to reveal too much. But I have examples of women who have moved abroad without a job first, and lived off savings, presumably, until they got a job. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion on this situation. Okay. First things first is that you say, okay, moving abroad without a job first. And I'm guessing with the intent to live off savings in a cheap country, but obviously ended up working somewhere if they stayed. 2 things about that. 1, what is a cheap country to you? It's really important to know, right? Some people think, I live in Spain. Some people think Spain is cheap. Some people think a definition of cheap is Thailand. Some people's definition of cheap might be Mexico or Colombia. So I think that's really important to know what your definition of cheap is, to know how far your savings is going to go. The other thing is that you really need to know what visa requirements are applicable here in whatever country you choose. Just because you move somewhere, and I don't know what visa you may have gotten to move somewhere, but just because you move somewhere doesn't mean you could work there. So I would really stress figuring out visa requirements before you decide. Who is this? Oh, hey Star, Black girl in Budapest. I can't wait to chat with you. Okay, yeah. Side note, Black girl in Budapest is going to be on the show. We already had a lovely chat. It's going to be an amazing episode. But back to what I was talking about, which was wanting you to know what is a cheap country for you. What does that mean? Like how far your money's going to stretch. But then also that country, what are the work visa requirements? You may move there and then you're like, oh, I'll find a job there. But that might not work out because of the work visa requirements and the economy. For example, I live here in Barcelona. I live in Spain. A lot of people think they're going to move to Spain and get a job. That's sad for them because the Spanish economy is not strong. This pandemic did not help. And also, even if you did find a job, depending on where you're coming from in the world, the salary is probably not to your liking and your lifestyle, right? The average Spanish salary is about 900 euros. Can you live like that? Also know that a lot of Spanish people, they are not paying rent. They're staying in with their parents. They're staying in family homes. They're not paying rent, right? Their moms might be cooking them weekly meals in Tupperware and sending it to their house. That's not uncommon. So you got to figure that out, right? Yeah, Spain is relatively cheap, but can you work here? Can you get a job? If you are American or non-EU, getting into the EU to work without any other situation going on might be a little bit tricky for you. So I would definitely, Candace, if you're thinking about that, that's something for you to think about. If you're independently wealthy and you're like, girl, just if I decide to work, then sure, like, okay, great. But I would not put my eggs in the basket to move somewhere without a job and thinking you're going to get a job in the local economy, right? Because there's a lot of things to think about. I would also, again, reference to episode 2 with Deanna, where even though her situation, she was with her husband and they had one source of income, but they had to have another source of income. She was working it out. She was trying to figure out how she was going to get this job, and she was getting rejected. She had to change up her interview style. She had to change up her resume style to be able to get a job in Hong Kong. And her visa allowed her to get a job in Hong Kong. So that's something for you to think about. Who else is here? Oh, hey, it's Bella. Oh, and Monica. Hey, Monica. Aside. So if you guys haven't seen, Monica from Gorgeous Globe wrote a very nice write-up about me and the podcast and my experiences with racism here in Europe and in Spain. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check it out. Where is it? Well, I'm linked to it, linked in the Instagram story. And if you follow me on Facebook, it's the link there too. Or you could probably click on her Instagram and find it in her bio. But thanks. Hey, Monica, thank you so much. So that's my thoughts, right? It's so important for you to be strategic, right, about this move. I know a lot of people right now are wanting to just go. And if you have savings, you're like, I could probably make this stretch. And you probably could, depending on where you're moving to. You know, you're moving to Indonesia, moving to Thailand, Mexico. I mean, I don't know how much you have saved, but if you are, then you could probably make that work for you. But if you have the intention or you have the necessity to work down the line, you need to be way more strategic. So you got to slow your roll a little bit. You got to think, can I make a living that I want in this economy, in this place? Do they have a need for what I offer, right? If you are a social worker or a doctor, like, do you have the proper licensing to even work in this country? Do they need your type of skills, or do you need to obtain the different skills? There's so many things to think about. What I would suggest, though, because this is kind of like my expertise, I'm a business strategist. I've been a business strategist for many years now, probably 8-ish. And sorry if you can hear my neighbors, because that's Spain. Everybody's loud. I would suggest, though, if you have a necessity to work and you have expertise in a field, right, I would try to use that expertise to have some sort of online business or develop a freelancing consulting practice one in which you could be charging in euros, in British pounds, in US dollars, and maybe living life where the cost of living is substantially lower. So you could be living somewhere, but also working in a different kind of market and situation, which is what I do, and I highly suggest. I think sometimes people move here to Spain or Portugal or somewhere else, and they try to target their efforts towards the local market. But the local market may not have the disposable income or even like the wherewithal to know about your services or appreciate your services or pay your services or the ability to pay your services. That's just what it is, right? So, Candace, if you're listening, this is my thoughts on about moving somewhere without a job lined up. Even if you have savings, and even if it's a cheap country, if you have the necessity to work, definitely, please be strategic about it. That's what I have to say about it. Okay? Let me know, you guys, if this was helpful at all. If it was, I'm not sure how Instagram stories work. Maybe leave a comment. I see Instagram stories, but I don't know if you can comment. So you can comment. Let me know if you want more of these lives with questions. And be sure, if you haven't checked out this week's episode of Flourish in the Foreign, please do so. This week we have Adma of Chapter 6 podcast. She is a Londoner living in Toronto. She has a hilarious podcast, and she had such great insights about moving and living abroad and really making a life, right? She has really great insights on what it takes to cultivate a life in a different city. You can't be shy, even if you are, or at least you have to exert considerable amount of effort to create the life that you want. So that is all for me today. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if it was or if it wasn't. All right, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.